Jack Ward led the ProVelo Super League coming into the final round by a narrow margin over Zach Marriage, and he needed yet another stellar performance here if he wanted to take home that Jayco Wallula contract. Came right down to the wire in the end, with the contract decided on the final climb on the final stage. Let's take a look at how we got there. Welcome back to the Homegrown Advantage, where we analyse domestic racing here in Australia. Today, we're taking a look at the Men's Q Tour, the final round of the ProVelo Super League for 2025. This was going to be the showdown of the much-anticipated battle between Jack Ward, the league leader, and Zach Marriage, his main rival throughout the league. They were separated by only 43 points coming into the final round, and with so many points on offer throughout the tour, it was very much a possibility that Zach Marriage could step over Jack Ward into the lead in the final round here. For Marriage to win the league, he had to win the GC, and he had to be right up there on a number of stages and the Jersey classifications to get enough points ahead of Ward. The GC win alone wouldn't be enough for him. We had 4 stages here in Queensland for the final round. Let's dive in. Stage 1 was the South Bank Criterium. It was under lights, and the footage here makes it seem much more dark than it was in person. It actually wasn't too bad. The break managed to get up the road, and interestingly, the Case Body Wrap team put both of their top sprinters in the move here. No hedging of the bets by leaving one of them behind. Both Cam Scott and Liam Walsh here fully committed to the move. The peloton, that was mostly led by Jack Ward's Brennan team. They were mostly happy to see the breakaway win here because the break was going to take all of the points and that would help protect Jack Ward's advantage. Remember, Zach Marriage, he needed those points to help take the title, so he was going to be missing out here on this stage should that breakaway win. The Brennan team, they set a pace fast enough that no one really came around them to organise a chase, especially because the teams you would expect to be motivated to chase, such as Case, they were happy with the composition of the break. They had a rider up the front there, so there was no desire for them to get up the front there and work. So the break, they pulled out an advantage. They were going to contest the win here, and they were ready to fight it out. Interestingly, though, there were no attacks against the Case Body Wrap duo. I thought surely we'd see a few attacks because it was almost a guarantee at this point that one of the Case riders was going to win, either Liam Walsh or Cam Scott. But I assume everyone must have just been too tired at the end there to make those moves. Coming into the sprint, Scott Bowden, he launched very early here to try and get a jump through that final corner. And I really do like this move because if there's any hesitation from Scott or Walsh, he might be able to just run away with it. But unfortunately for him, they're both straight onto the wheel. They whip around this final corner and then come into the final straight. Cam Scott, he came through to take the opening stage win ahead of his teammate, Liam Walsh. Scott Bowden, great position through that final corner. He managed to take third on the line there. Stage 2, we had the time trial. It was pretty rolly, no real flat parts over the 8.6 kilometre course. And this was a super important stage for Jack Ward. Zach Marriage, he's the stage favourite here, and he put really solid time into Ward at the Tour of Tasmania time trial, which was only 4 kilometres. So there was a potential for some really big time gaps here between Marriage and Ward. Brendan Davids, he was also a favourite, but unfortunately for him, he ended up dropping his chain. Maybe the mechanic that they've got here was a little bit too young, could do with a bit more experience to prevent that happening in the future. Marriage, he was laser focused on the start line, and he came out with a really quick ride to take the stage win. Just check out how fast he's going up here to the finish line on the last climb. It's crazy. And what we were really waiting for here was the gap to Jack Ward. You can see him here in his Spaceballs dark helmet costume. He pulled out a very impressive performance in his least favourite discipline, taking 5th on the stage, only 22 seconds behind. This is important because you get points if you're in the top 5 on a stage. So Ward, he managed to pick up 10 points here. If he'd been one place further back, he would have got a big fat 0, and that wouldn't have been great for him to try and defend that point lead that he had over Zach Marriage. Stage 3, the Lakeside Raceway, was bloody hot, and the schedule had everyone feeling pretty cooked heading into this stage because we had the crit on Friday night, late on Friday night. There was an hour drive to the Moreton Bay area where the time trial was, so a lot of people ended up staying in the Moreton Bay area after that criterium, so it was a bit of a drive, short sleep, TT in the morning, and then a very short recovery before coming into this stage here. Break of 12 went up the road here. It did have the GC leader, Liam Walsh, and the Brennan team, they had the exact same plan, it seemed, as the stage 1 crit. They were happy to let that gap go up the road, managed it, but they weren't really doing enough to actually pull it back and contest the win. With Liam Walsh in the break, riders started attacking to get away from him because he was more or less guaranteed to win that stage from the break if they came together for a sprint. Tynan Shannon and Elliot Schultz, they managed to get away, those two sprinting it out for the win. Shannon, he had some demons here. Let's not forget he was second to Brendan Davids way back in round 1 at the SA Kick-It. He's put those demons to rest. He managed to dust Schultz here in the sprint, stepping into the GC lead in the process with the gap that he had plus the bonus seconds. It was a very popular win as well. Lots of people very happy to see him get that one. His teammates absolutely pumped here. He had a small lead over Liam Walsh heading into that final stage, And with Marriage not too far behind, he was going to have to really be on the offensive here to try and hang on to that GC at the end of the tour, because it was expected that Marriage would be able to put big time into him on that final climb. The final stage, it had 10 circuits around that Moreton Bay hinterland loop before heading up towards the Campbell's Pocket climb, which is 2.2 Ks, averaging 10%. And keep in mind, that includes a small descent. So the actual climbing portion was well over 10%. It's really steep. Ben Coates here, he started the break before being joined by plenty of horsepower from behind, which included Tynan Shannon. Shannon, he was looking to get up the road, defend his GC lead, which was a good move. We talked about him needing to go on the offensive earlier. This gave him the best chance of holding onto the jersey because he was almost a certainty to lose big time against Marriage and Ward on that final climb if they came to it together. Leighton Cook, he attacked the break, and Shannon, he took the intermediate sprints behind, trying to get as much of an advantage possible over his rivals in the breakaway, but then obviously for the riders back in the bunch. And let me set the scene for you here at this stage. The break, they're up the road. With 30 kilometers to go, they've got just over a 2-minute gap. Zach Marriage's Butterfield's team had been chasing pretty much all day, managing the gap. And they're a strong team, but they weren't strong enough to close down a lot of the horsepower that was at the front here. So they were steadily losing ground as the stage went on. The only team that wasn't represented at the front who would be strong enough to chase it down were Brennan. But unfortunately for Butterfields, Brennan seemed pretty happy to let the break win because, again, this would help defend Jack Ward's advantage. It would let all of those points get taken by the breakaway, and it would mean that Jack Ward was pretty much a certainty to win the overall ProVelo Super League. So it was very interesting then at 30 kilometers to go to see Brendan start really winding things back and closing the gap to the breakaway. You'd only do this for one reason, and that's if Jack Ward is feeling really good. So at this point, we started to think, Jack Ward, he's getting ready for that final climb. He's going to absolutely light it up here. The gap came down rapidly, and we were setting up for that big duel on the final climb. Liam Cawthorne, Dylan Krenchek, they attacked the break. They were the last ones to be reeled in as Julian Baudry here started to set up Jack Ward's attack. He nearly took Ward out though, swinging off to the left-hand side as Ward passed on the left, but he got around, pressed on, Marriage there, glued to the wheel of Jack Ward. Marriage was 22 seconds ahead of Ward on GC here, so he just needed to finish near enough to get the GC win as these two blasted ahead, going straight past Krenchek and then Cawthorne before Ward, he opened up the sprint. He's got more punch than Marriage. He took the stage here. He was composed as well to zip up the jersey crossing a line, but Zach Marriage right behind, he took out the GC. Unfortunately for him, it wasn't enough to close the gap to Ward in the league overall standings. So it was Ward here. He takes home the Jaco Walula Stagiaire contract for the under-23 classification win. And then he also took out a Factor Ostro Vam as the winner of the overall ProVelo Super League. Here's what Jack Ward had to say following that stage.
Yeah, so good. Like the team, it couldn't have been better without them. It just wouldn't have happened. Like they did so much work today in the latter half, and then brought the break back so I could go for the stage win, and it was pretty special.
So Jack Ward, he takes a big win in the inaugural ProVelo Super League ahead of Zach Marriage by only 19 points in the end. These two are super talents in Australian cycling, and I can't wait to see what the rest of the year and their careers holds for them. That's all of the coverage for the men's ProVelo Super League. I'm already looking forward to next year's event. Thanks for joining me for all of the analysis throughout the men's races. I'll have the women's one shortly. Until then, I'll catch you next time.